Welcome to In the Calm. I'm your host, Georgiana Alexander. What is up, you guys? Welcome to season 3 of In the Calm. I am so freaking excited that we made it here. When I first began this podcast, I honestly did not feel like I had no inclination that I was going to be starting a podcast, and I kept getting the intuitive nudge that this was something that I needed to do. And over the past 2 seasons, it has blown my mind how many of us have come together, how many of you have reached out and told me your stories and connected to the guests that we've had on, and how many incredible friendships I've gotten to make in the process. So I am so thrilled that here we are in season 3. Welcome. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Georgiana Alexander. And since we are at the beginning of a new season, I thought I would just dive in, first of all, with a little bit of reintroduction of me and what we're going to be doing this season, because we're going to be mixing it up just a little bit from where we have been. But hi, guys. In a nutshell, I'm an adventurer. I'm a 3-5 emotional projector for all my human design junkies out there. I'm a Sagittarius moon, Aries rising, and a Virgo sun, Western astrology, Leo sun, Vedic astrology. So, a little about my background is I really come from a branding, marketing, business building background. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. I've been an entrepreneur myself, a consultant. All of that came really naturally. I've helped build over $1 billion business and company in a few short years, as well as scaling multi-million-dollar businesses in my early 20s, and worked with a number of different mega success stories along the way since that time that led to me getting to work with incredible brands and businesses and startups in beauty, e-commerce, finance, tech, private equity, real estate, lifestyle, and design. I mean, I've really gotten to dive into so many different areas of business because it is such a passion. And now I consult and mentor with coaches and entrepreneurs, high performance leaders and businesses in optimization and growth and balance and branding. And to the flip side of this, and what I'm so excited to really dive into with you guys is that I'm also a generational intuitive, a channel, a seer, a healer, a futurist, and a dimensional shaman. And that goes back to since birth. And then really we're going to get super woo and so woo. It's just normal in this conversation for me anyways. And I think for you it will be as well. But going back even beyond in every lifetime, this is who I am and this is how I communicate. And so I'm excited to do a whole episode into what that's like, and what it was like growing up being fully awake to my gifts and seeing beings and teleporting and astral traveling, all of these kinds of things, and being a healer and seeing people's energy bodies and knowing things ahead of when they were coming, premonitions and futurists, both in business and in health and with people. But all of that is the really, really juicy side of things that I'm so excited to get into. It's the energetic side and really our quantum living, our way of existing in the universe as we are divinely led to, that I can't wait to share so many different thoughts and conversations on how we can use all that information that's really, in my opinion, our human birthright, our intuitive nature, our trust, our flow states, and really the origin of this podcast, In the Calm. Because to me, In the Calm represents what it means to be in a state of trust and flow and letting the universe work with us, working with our natural flow states and our natural gifts and abilities rather than against them. And that was something that in every bit of my business career in entrepreneurship and in every other area of my life, in relationships, in the entertainment things that I did, and artistry that I did, and have done and still continue to do, these are really the foundations that I work with. And this is also the basis of what draws me to so many incredible guests that we've talked to in previous seasons is hearing people's stories of the way they're utilizing their language with the universe in quantum living. So this is what we're gonna get into in this season. And I cannot wait because so many of us have had different experiences with awakenings. I know my story of awakening to this and the way it's influenced my life and even the several near-death experiences, which many of you know about, but I'll share again, particularly my really visceral one of driving off a cliff. But so, with all of those stories, we can learn so many lessons from these experiences. And I learn lessons again every time I share my experiences. We can live more optimally in greater ease in growing our business and creating the family life that we're most excited to create, the types of relationships we're most excited to be involved in, whether that's friendship or romantic. And so I'm really excited that we are going to have the opportunity to dive in. In previous seasons, I would say we've been more focused on interviews. And I keep hearing from all of you that you really want to hear more of my stories and more of my perspectives. And as a 3-5 projector, that's something that I'm really not short of is stories and experiences and literally leaping off cliffs and, the things that I've learned from them. And so I can't wait to share that with you. We are still going to have so many incredible guests coming on this season, but this season is really going to be a more casual, intimate conversation between you and I, where we can share our stories. And that requires both sides, right? In this type of relationship, I want to hear from you too. I want to hear your questions or the things that you're hitting blocks with or want to dive into, because that really helps give me the feedback and information of what it is that I can share that will help potentially unlock a different perspective for you in your life. And that's my goal with this podcast. And it always has been in everything that I do is to share tools and perspectives through my lens of experience, ways that we can help make life easier, more in flow, faster, just a really fun, incredible adventure. Because ultimately, that's what it's about, right? That's what we're here to do. So, now that we've kind of reintroduced ourselves and talked a little bit about what we're going to be sharing in this upcoming season, season 3 of In the Calm, I want to, before we dive off, and just side note, I feel like a lot of these solo episodes that we're going to be sharing this season are going to be shorter than our typical ones. So, my aim is to really get right into things, deep dive, have these conversations in 20 to 30 minutes where we can just come in, connect together, get to a point, and then go and really integrate that into our lives. And so that's the goal. We're going to see how we do today. But I do, before we jump off of this very first episode back, and it's been a hot minute, but I want to get into like what I mean when I talk about quantum energetics and quantum living, because this is something that has become so hot topic. And I'm thrilled for that because quantum physics is really relatively new in terms of language and awareness. I mean, it's not new in terms of the universe, right? This is our origin. But in terms of the language of that and our understanding of that, and many of you may, like myself, love to deep dive into quantum physics. And just side note, I am not a scientist. I mean, you probably gathered that, but this is not going to be conversations that we're getting into that get into the nitty gritty of scientific language. I'm really more interested in communicating and sharing the way that we can use this natural, universal, our laws, our birthright, the energetics of the world around us, the language of the world around us, utilize those tools and access to help better our 3D lives, because I think that's the fun of it, at least in my opinion. Okay, so let's get into it. What is quantum living? what are we talking about when we're talking about quantum physics? In layman's terms, and to keep it super simple, basically everything in our entire universe is energy. Everything is energetics. We think it's tangible, we think it's physical, and really it's much more like 99.999% energy versus the 0.0001% matter. And so, what that means in layman's terms is that there's much more influence and movability and change in our world and in the density of vibration than what we collectively always thought through time and history. And so, what that means in terms of language, in terms of information, is we're taught to understand a world that's only seen, that you can touch, that's tangible. And there's so much more to our world, to our existence, that's unseen, that you can't touch, that we're getting information on, that we're getting feedback from, messages from. And what I mean by that is not just, relatives that pass on or what we think of in that world or other dimensionals. Although, yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback and information from that as well. But we're actually getting feedback through different timelines. Because again, if everything is energy and time is not linear, which we're going to dive more deeper into later in the season, but just to kind of nutshell some of this language, which I feel like a lot of you are familiar with. So we're going to keep it in the nutshell in terms of, understanding that time isn't linear. And so when we think about past lives or we think about our other timelines that we come in and out of, it's not on a linear, it's not, start here, end here, or that was past and this is future. All of that is kind of happening at the same time. And so we're getting feedback and information, especially as our Earth speeds up, as the density of the frequency of the Earth, the vibrations in the Earth become faster, everything becomes less dense. Those time and space realities moving in and out of how things are communicated to us, those shift. It gets faster. So we're getting feedback and information from other time and space. We're getting feedback in our current time reality of other people's emotions, of other people's thoughts, of our thoughts and emotions in deeper ways than we ever have before. And so there's so much to our world that's really unseen. And that can feel really overwhelming if this is a new understanding or awareness to you. When you first come online to it, it can just feel like a bombardment of so much. But really, if we can shift that lens and that perspective to look at things from a place of excitement and adventure and joy, and also to realize how much co-creation that gives us, how much our intentions, how much our thoughts, our emotions, and our energetic choices influence the world that we're living in. I mean, it entirely influences the world that we're living in. And so that's in a nutshell quantum energetics. And again, there's so much more in depth that I want to share with you of how I was taught that since I was a child, where that information came from, even before, you know, before there was Google, basically, before there was all this trendy conversation around quantum energetics. So we have access to information so much further beyond, what we can research on Google. We're informing our decisions based on things that we have access to on the energetic grid work of our entire universe that we're not tapping into. But if we learn to tap into that, that's really where this incredible magic of creation, joy, abundance, play, adventure, all kind of come online and meet. So that's what we're going to get into. That's what I obsess over. I could talk to you about for 24/7. We could dive down all of these different rabbit holes of like, great, that's amazing, but how do we really integrate that? How are we using that in our day-to-day lives? How can I translate that to my business, my relationships, to what it is that you're building and creating? And so That's what we want to get into. But for today, I want to talk about what quantum living means to me, really making these huge leaps in every area of your life, but with a more aligned sense of self and purpose at the core of those leaps, so that we're not just flinging in every which direction. It really is intentionally created and crafted. And so getting into what quantum living looks like and into these conversations, it's really about taking all of this information that's juicy and abundant and available to us in the entire universe. I mean, through all time and space. That's so freaking incredible and powerful that we get to access this, that this is a part of our divine birthright as humans, the way that we're built, the way that we interpret information and energy and create and craft things. This is our world. And so quantum living is taking full advantage of that, really tapping into all of that abundance, all of those resources, and utilizing it as we are intentionally crafting and creating our life, our lifestyle, our businesses, as I've said, our relationships, our health, our wellness, beauty, you name it. Really looking at life through that lens. And that's something that I have been living for a long time now. And I think way longer than I actually had awareness of living in that way. And I think many of us do, but there's so much power to bringing that online and being able to have the intentionality with that, with what we're creating. Quantum living is really, for me, the origin of where chaos and calm originated. It's leaping into what I felt so divinely connected to, passionate about, wanting to share a culmination of all my experiences and passions and interest in one hub. And what that means is like as we're creating things, getting to tap into quantum energetics and all of the abundance that's around us. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have every single answer like created in tangible reality in a split second. And that's okay because that doesn't mean that you're not in a quantum up level or quantum living. I have been in positions, and again, I can't wait to share this story with you, but where I've, with my eyes open, watched the entire reality shift, watched the floors change, watched what was happening right in front of me that looked like there was no possibility of another reality. I've seen that shift right before my eyes in a split second. So I do know that it is possible for us in so many different ways, whether we see it with our eyes or whether it's happening in real time, to shift our realities for what we want, for what we choose, and what we're setting our intentions towards. But in every circumstance, you're not going to want things to shift that quickly. And that's normal and okay. You're going to want time for your nervous system to regulate. You're going to want a little bit of space to feel safe in your choices and to make small tweaks and pivots and changes to what it is that you're creating to where that feels more aligned and correct for you. And so that's where we get into talking about things like voids and lulls and slower leaps and taking those times and periods of integrations. And that's totally okay. Because as I've said, when you're seeing that reality shift right in front of your mind, it is literally mind blowing. And I don't necessarily recommend that for every leap or choice in your life, but it's actually amazing to know what is possible for us at in any moment is to make a choice, to set an intention, and to see our lives start to reform more in alignment for who we are and what it is that we're calling in. Let's kind of go through some really great ways to get into this mindset of quantum living. First of all, like take your focus off of this huge unknown, all the possibilities all at once. It's really amazing to kind of settle into what I love to call a sacred space. And that can be as simple as just sitting on the ground or on your bed or just deep breathing and connecting in with yourself, taking time to create a space where you really give yourself permission to show up and to share with you emotions, feelings, desires. And sometimes, if you're not familiar with cultivating that, if you don't already have a deep personal relationship with yourself, you need to kind of slowly build this relationship. So the more that you can create that space and inviting yourself in, the more deep you can connect with what it is that you're wanting. Whatever that looks like, we have some great resources in earlier episodes where you can, listen to some meditations or tap into what it looks like to build protective space or just sit in nature, whatever feels really, really juicy and good to you. But go into a place that feels really safe and sacred for you and ask yourself, what is it that I'm really ready to draw in this next chapter? Maybe hold your hand at your heart and see what comes to mind or emotions or just even what writes out in front of you in that moment. What feels exciting. It doesn't have to be some giant leap. It could be something simple like, I'd really like pizza for dinner. That's fine. Whatever it is, don't judge this. Give it permission to show up in your life and expand. Maybe you have a really huge list of a new business that you're working on, or maybe you're ready to go to the next level in a romantic relationship, or leap into a new venture, move to a new city. Whatever that is, just take some pause and take a moment to get excited in yourself, to feel juicy and really dive into the experience of what it is that you're craving and wanting. When you have that answer, when you can see the vision or feel the emotions and the excitement for what that is, acknowledge it. Don't just say, oh, wow, that's amazing. Actually, put all of that excitement on a pause and feel it. And I just want you to step outside of your thinking brain and really go into your feeling heart and acknowledge how big and beautiful and powerful that is that you've given space and awareness to what that point is. And then take a note or make a sticky note or whatever that is for you, like that you can see this in your life connecting into your belief system, whether it's God, the universe, angels, your spirit guides, whatever that is for you. See that surrendered, that vision that you have. Let that work for you with every support system you have in this entire universe. When we state an intention, when we state what it is that we want, and we surrender that to our belief system, to our higher self, to God, to the universe, and we ask ourselves, our heart, our highest self, hey, show me the next steps. That starts to unlock all of the support that we have accessible to us. It's like the whole universe rushes in and shows up and says, oh, great, well, you have a block in this area. Or, oh, great, here's a pathway over here. Take steps in this direction. Or you might feel compelled to drive home a different way or introduce yourself to someone new. And that sparks the next step. You're going to start to see these synchronicities in your life that really aren't, surprising at all because you've asked for it. You've set that intention of what it is that you're wanting. And then you're letting that show up and work for you in your life. There's some other great ways that I like to draw in support and really tapping into this quantum living is, and these are really simple, but these are great ways to get into ease and flow and into the calm, into quantum living. Okay, you ready? Play. I know it's so simple. You've probably heard this, but I swear it is so powerful. Like when you were a kid and all time just vanished and you were so immersed in the things that you loved and that felt good to you, just taking that time to play and maybe make a list of the things that would feel good to you as an adult to play, or make a list of the things that you really enjoyed as a kid and see if any of those cross over now and still feel really exciting and juicy to you. So take that time to play. Maybe there's a certain day a week you could set aside for this, or maybe, even a couple of moments in your day just to remind yourself that you are a creature designed to play and designed to live in joy. And the next one is pause. And I know that sounds so simple as well. Pause. But just like we were talking about when you took the time, or if you're going to take the time to look at and really get connected into that thing that you're drawing in this next chapter for yourself, you want to put that excitement, put a little pin drop in it and pause just to bring awareness to that moment. And then obviously remove the pin drop. Like you don't need to keep it on pause, but we just want to acknowledge these moments, acknowledge the power, acknowledge the bigness and the specialness in our lives that this is. So take time to pause and not just in, mindfulness or in self-care, but really pause and notice the things that are supporting you. Notice your triggers as they arise because when we ask for things that are new and breaking through the mold of where we've been living, there's ultimately high likelihood that there's going to be triggers that arise as we're breaking through whatever fears or limitations or blocks that are coming up. And those are actually gifts for us to be able to acknowledge, surrender, honor, whatever that particular trigger is needing from you to shift our lens and look at it through the perspective of honoring what that is. So, again, putting pause to the reaction or the emotion, or just like getting excited about the thing that you're creating and then flashing right past it, right? Like getting in fast speed motion to go ahead and integrate it when really pausing and acknowledging, wow, this is so cool. I feel so excited and honored that I get to show up for this, and feeling that same way for the most difficult challenges when you can really tap into a sense of gratitude for even the most challenging of moments for these triggers. And I know that's something I worked long and hard with, and I still have to remind myself of, but has been one of the biggest leaps in my life, learning how to cultivate change and leaps using my triggers as the catalyst. And so, really looking at triggers or challenging moments or experiences or people that really piss you off or hurt your feelings. And again, like us being able to look at those moments of challenge or heartbreak or hurt as support, as moments of gifts, that doesn't take away at all from honoring that it really sucks that you're going through it, or honoring your emotions or needing to work through that. We're not bypassing in any way, but just shifting the lens of the way that we look at those things honestly gives you so much more empowerment, and it helps you move through with greater ease. And taking pause to acknowledge these moments is really a power play. So, okay, another one that's super obvious. I feel like these are so simple, but so, so powerful is sleep. And we could add on water to that. I mean, we are creatures that need care, and sleep is really massive for us. Not only does it help nourish our body and help us integrate everything in the day that we've taken in, our nutrients, our learning, our growth. And obviously, we need it for our well being, and same with water. But it's so valuable in times of chaos or leaps or voids or in the middle of traumas to really give ourself support by extra sleep if possible. Definitely getting sleep, but getting extra sleep if we can. It's easy for our brains to flip out as we're shifting realities, as we're expanding and growing in our lives, our earth. The energy around us is moving so quickly right now. We're definitely in a quickening collectively, everything politically, everything environmentally. I mean, every which way that we look at it, our worlds are in quickness and in chaos. So it's really, really important to give ourselves extra nourishment, the same way that you would a small child, where you would nurture that child if it were going through something and needed support. You'd give it a hug. You'd say, let's just take a nap, knowing that as soon as you re-emerge from that rest, everything feels normalized and better, like you can take on the world again. And if not, give yourself a little bit more extra support, right? But so we want to nurture ourselves the same way we would a child. And in fact, we want to nurture our inner child and give ourselves permission to reemerge and set off into the world, creating the potential and the life that we know is calling us and that we're here to show up for. So, those are some really simple, obvious tools that help us regulate and integrate when we're in the midst of these major leaps, challenges, growth. And we need those tools in our toolkit if we're going to be in the space of quantum living because we are making fast intentional leaps. And it's really important to nurture our physical selves, our mental selves, our emotional selves, and our energetic selves. So, those are a couple of my favorite tools to help regulate, integrate, and just kind of normalize the crazy that happens when you're in the midst of massive shift and reality shifting and leaping. But so, going back to talking about quantum living, how about like giving yourself permission to just dance and play in the realm of possibility? Showing up this next week and this weekend, just taking a couple of moments to really name and set that intention for what it is that you're creating in this next chapter, in this next leap. And it can be in different categories. That's entirely up to you. But just take that time to set your intention for what your next leap looks like, and then giving yourself permission, tuning into your highest self, or again, as we talked about, surrendering this to God and the universe to set up the pathways that are going to help you achieve that. And then letting it go by taking your pause, by resting, by playing, sleeping, all that. We dance in possibilities the more that we surrender. So that is it for our first episode back. I don't want to dive too deep down the rabbit holes. I feel like we covered a lot today. I want to hear from you. What is it that you want to dive more into? I cannot wait to show up each week in community together, covering like different conversations that really are going to help all of us show up in our lives more in ease, more fully, and in greater intentionality, really quantum living with all the potentials and all the possibilities. I'm so freaking excited that here we are at season three. We are going to have incredible guests this season. I cannot wait for you to hear their stories and hear their expertise. And I'm just excited for us to continue this relationship and dive more deeply into all the areas of life that we are committed to creating. All right, my loves, I will see you next week. Reach out, connect, and all my love.